So there was a certain kind of comedy back then which you might characterise as being a bit cruel.
I thought this was an interesting conversation between Andrew Marr and Ben Elton on the subject of the freedom to offend. Ben Elton's take seems reasonably level-headed, but he looks towards who the endless debates over free speech ultimately benefits.
And there's been a reaction to that today, but there's no reaction to the reaction. I was going to say, there's people like Ricky Gervais, there's Jimmy Carr coming back and saying, actually, I'm not going to be closed down. I'm going to make comedy which is offensive. So where do you stand on that?
Nobody's trying to close them down, and I don't think they're trying to make comedy that's offensive. I think they're trying to be funny. There is a fringe area where there has developed a certain feeling amongst some audiences that they have a right not to be offended. They certainly have a right not to feel threatened to be the exposed to hate speak. But there's a big difference between giving offence and provoking hatred. And on the whole, I think there's still a great deal of common sense in this room. I don't think that in the long run, the only winners about this cancellation debate are going to be those on the right who want to provoke a culture war. They want to use it to distract attention from the utter failure of their social policies and their economic policies. They'd rather we were all talking about whether someone's been cancelled or not, instead of whether kids are actually getting enough to eat in the schools. And I think it's largely a smokescreen. Having said that, of course, because the internet allows anyone's outrage to be multiplied, because 100 voices on Twitter make an enormous noise, I can assure you, having occasionally been subjected to it myself. And I think we do have to be careful about policing language to the extent where we say if somebody merely feels uncomfortable, we let them say they feel unsafe. There's a lot of difference between feeling uncomfortable and feeling unsafe, and I think we need to keep an eye on that. Having said that, on the whole, really the only winners out of this conversation we're having now, Andrew, are going to be Trump and frankly, Johnson and at the moment, the current government who wants to weaponise a culture war.
Click here for patronising Isabel Oakeshott getting shouted at.